be okay with the no. You're going to hear a lot of it, and you're going to hear it from many directions. You're going to hear it almost every day. Sometimes it just completely can demotivate you. A lot of people did not believe me when I said that you can actually do this. You can actually create a language model that can interpret unstructured data into structured attributes. I did that much before, Sam Altman did at OpenAI. It was fascinating to me that if you just pay attention to all this data, it tells you a story. But the story is in a very unstructured format. I got curious at that point to say, is there a way to take these exposures, train it over millions and millions of claims across different insurance carriers, and create an exposure intelligence database? I chose to leave the company because I had a three and a half year old that was not doing really great with my 40% of travel. So 100% was completely out of the question. The whole vision for Charlee was to be able to convey that story of a policyholder and convey that story in that measurable attributes so that the adjusters or the claims people can actually take into account that story while making a decision. When you don't have a clear idea of your life and death, why fear anything else? Every invention that human race has had, if you go back, it's always displaced some kind of jobs, but it's created other kinds of jobs. It's a tool, and we have to add more tool sets. I love that phrase. You have to add more tool sets to your toolbox, and we cannot get paranoid or afraid or fear the toolbox, but use it effectively to move forward. My grandpa was a major influence in my life. So I think those core values of, stand up for what you believe and work hard for what you believe. That quality and that strength, I think that strength is what keeps me going. You ask any mom, do they remember the pain of delivery? They don't remember the labor pains when they look at their child. So I can only tell you that it's very similar to that. Now, as a teenager, I've always taken a lot of risks, and becoming an entrepreneur and taking these kind of risks and being uncomfortable in those situations is scary. It's scary. It just requires a very tough person. And it also requires somebody who's consistent, who shows up. And that consistency is what I have developed.
This is the Business Philosopher Within You podcast. I'm your host, Bhavesh Naik. As we explore the business philosophies that guide business leaders, we also like to navigate the industry they influence. Something that we increasingly like to explore on this podcast is the intersection between artificial and human intelligence and their impact on our businesses, organizations, and the whole world. To shed some light on such an exploration, I've invited a very special guest to join us. Sri Ramaswamy is the founder and CEO of Charlee AI, the insurance industry's first AI platform for exposure and risk management. Sri is the business expert and architect behind Charlee AI's AI platform and solutions. She is a patent holder of its AI-based technology that can extract and analyze all sources of data. She is a thought leader and speaker on operational use of unstructured data and a mentor for the insurtech community. She also enjoys hiking, yoga, and learning about astronomy. I am pleased to have you on this podcast, Sri.
Thank you so much, Bhavesh, for inviting me on this very special day.
Yes, for our listeners, we are recording on November 5th, which is an election day, the presidential election day in the United States. So that this is a special day. And thank you for voting. And it might be late by the time that the episode comes out. But hope you voted and hope you continue to participate in our democracy. So with that, Sri, if I can ask, I wanted to ask you this question, but I think it's kind of a difficult question for anyone to kind of get into. I was going to ask you, well, explain to me like I'm 5-year-old, but I'm not going to ask you that. Let's pretend that there is a 17-year-old or 18-year-old who just got his or her driver's license. And the mom and dad are going, oh my God, my insurance just went through the roof, right? What happened? So if you were to explain to this person what it is that you do at Charlee AI, what would you say to this person?
I would start by saying first, understand your policy,
Yeah,
understand your policy in detail,
right,
especially when it comes to what's excluded, what's driving the premium rates,
right.
and then look at what is the exposure. Like, look at it from that aspect
Mm-hmm.
of insurance, because it's
Sure,
very important to understand the risks and the exposures, because that's really what is driving the premiums, as probably
sure.
what's driving his or her premium because
Yeah.
of their age, their experience, their very a short experience in driving, and some of the maybe the cars that they are going to drive, the
Uh-huh.
place that they're going to drive. So it's important to understand this from your contract, from your policy contract
Sure.
perspective, because what
Yeah.
Charlee AI does is it is looking at these exposures and these risks at the time the claim is filed, to
Mm-hmm.
understand how to better equip the adjusters and the claims managers to
Sure.
process and understand these exposures quickly, so they can settle these claims without an attorney being involved, and without, of course, going into litigation, or without making that claim more expensive or high severe. That's what
Sure.
Charlie does.
Okay. So something that we talked about, and wonderful explanation. I so love the fact that you didn't use any of the industry jargons. You didn't use things like predictive analysis and things like that. And wonderful job. So I love it.
Thank you.
And so a lot of this. So you talked about exposure, and exposure basically means, well, what are the things that are happening as I drive on the road, and this same thing applies to owning a home, or owning property, owning a
Mhm.
boat, or basically entire industry, whatever it is that they are insuring, the insurance industry. So there's exposure to certain risk factors, and that basically means that it's a ton of data. Is that correct? That's just a lot of information. And the insurance industry has always done this, what they call predictive analysis. Is that correct? Even 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that's their base. They try to figure out
Mhm.
their risk exposure as we try to figure out our risk exposure. And then they do some sort of magical data analysis to sort of figure out what the premium should be, and those kinds of things, right? So Charlee AI, what role does, now AI has come into this play. So what does AI bring to this equation here of this whole field, the discipline of data analysis and data analytics? So
As
what's the
you
role of AI into that?
as you very rightly said, Bhavesh, it's insurance industry has always been a treasure trove of data,
Sure.
and it's coming from different places, third party reports, your own
Yeah.
claim files, and also other areas from which you get connected to third party sources, and
Sure.
you're integrated with third party sources to bring in data for example, auto body shop or providers,
Sure.
or other kind of people, maybe medical reports coming in, police reports coming in.
Sure.
So in the auto world, these are very common third party data sources that you bring in.
Yeah.
The most important thing is to remember, what are you really going after? What is all this
Hmm.
data leading to? All this data in the claims world, all this data is leading to that one financial settlement.
Sure.
So you want to make sure the person making that decision at the very end, which is obviously going to impact the profitability of the company if you continue to make decisions based on subjective data. So
Hmm.
what Charlie attempts to do is to make that more objective, because AI
Sure.
provides a lot of technologies and techniques today, along with all the server capacity that has gone up today. It's Charlie is able to provide all those insights by taking and crunching and analyzing and interpreting all those data sources that we talked about and pulling the information such as the exposures and the risks in that claim that contributes to the settlement and brings
Okay.
all that in front of the claims manager and the claims adjusters so they can make a more objective decision. And AI just has completely accelerated and also gives you the force for processing such large volumes of data in few seconds or minutes.
Few seconds or minutes. Wow. And this is for the insurance industry to
Yes.
look at. So your product offering is for the insurance industry. So
Yes.
which groups do you, who is your target market within that industry?
We are mainly geared towards the property and casualty, as they say,
Okay.
both
Sure.
commercial and personal lines. Also
Sure.
includes workers' compensation.
Yeah.
And it's not to say we started in the life and workers' compensation, and then, we focused more on the PNC because we were building this whole proprietary exposure intelligence database. So we
Yeah.
wanted to focus on the PNC lines. And now we are kind of getting into niche lines around PNC and also being asked to come back to the life insurance. So,
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah. Yes. So you have a patent in AI field, or I think multiple patents, if I'm correct, right?
3.
So 3 patents. All right, that's wonderful. And how did you come up with this idea of Charlee AI? By the way, Charlie for our listeners is spelled with 2 E's. So it's CHARLEE.ai if you want to check it out on the web. And did you set out to solve a problem that you saw in the industry, or did you come at it from the other end, where you have a patent and you have a certain inclination to be doing certain research and those types of things, that you came up with this technology and that you look for an application for that? Or is it that you were out there in the industry and say, hey, insurance industry has this problem and we can bring some kind of solution to them, and I'm going to invent or innovate a technology that can help solve that? Which was that, one of those two, or
I
some
think
combination?
it was a blend of the two a little bit.
Yeah.
So my background, 22 years in data analytics, 17
Sure.
of that has been in the insurance industry. I
Yeah.
started working for a workers' compensation carrier and
Sure.
did a lot of legacy transformations, became successful there. And I was taken from there to a software company doing vertical solutions. So
Sure.
there I architected 2 solutions, one in underwriting and one in claims.
Mhm.
And it's during that claims solution launch, I was talking to a lot of claims managers.
Yeah.
And, invariably, everybody was pointing me to go back to claim files and claim notes and
Sure.
those kind of things. So I was very curious as to what kind of data is hidden. So I
Yeah.
took this as an exercise for one whole month. Every
Sure.
week, I would go through hundreds of claim files, actually reading it. And
Yeah.
it was fascinating to me that if you just pay attention to all this data, it tells you a story. But the story is in a very unstructured format. And the essence of the story really is coming down to what was the exposure, what were the facts of loss, what was the
Sure.
risks. So you set out to do something in the underwriting side. You took a policy, you have certain limits on the policy, you have certain exposures that you took the limits on. Now, when it comes to claims, that's where the rubber hits the road. It's like, what really happened? What was the loss all about? And that story, contains a lot of very important objective data,
Right.
from the story, and
Yeah.
everything else. There's a lot of noise. So you really
Yeah.
have to pay attention to those signals within the exposures within the stories. And I got curious at that point, say, is there a way to take these exposures, train it over millions and millions of claims across different insurance carriers, and create an exposure intelligence database out of which, you can do everything. You can predict, you can do a lot of analytics on top, a lot
Right.
of these things. So that's really where the curiosity started. It's like, okay, what can help me convert unstructured data into structured attributes that can be measurable?
Oh, wow. Okay. So converting unstructured data into structured attributes that are measurable.
Yes.
And I love that. So explain that a little bit more. So how do you take unstructured data and bring the structured attributes to them, or how do you find those?
So
If you can give us an
that's really
example.
one of
Yeah.
our first patents was just about that.
Okay. Yeah.
And the whole, I would say, the whole pivotal thing that you're doing in converting that unstructured data to structured attributes is, keeping your focus in mind. What is your focus of converting this? So given that, you can actually eliminate the noise,
Mm-hmm.
and you can say everything around the facts of loss, everything around the exposures are all
Sure.
noise. You don't really
Yeah.
need to know whether, like the person I was driving, and there are many facts that people give you when they're telling you the story of what really happened in an accident. For example,
Sure. Right.
now when they start telling you, I was going in this lane, I think I got a call, and I was driving at 60,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly I heard a noise from the back and somebody hit me.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
all these are important facts,
Uh-huh.
because the person just somewhere let in the fact that, they received a call. Now, did
Sure.
you answer the call? Were you on the call? Was it distracted driving? Was
Right.
it a place where you should not have been driving,
Right.
at 60? Maybe it was
Yeah.
a 40, 45 zone. It was, and then you can get all this data,
Ah.
outside of that. But
Yeah.
within the
Yeah.
within the story itself, I've told you now three facts, the
Mm-hmm.
speed of the thing, distracted driving, where you actually answer
You're
the
on the
call,
phone. Yeah.
and the fact that what was happening ahead of you, that you
Right.
had to, like, somebody hit you from the back. Did you suddenly stop? Did something
Yeah.
else happen ahead of you? So
Right.
all those things are important. So we
Yeah.
take all those things and convert into structured attributes that now you can measure somebody on distracted driving, on
Sure.
somebody who was speeding, on somebody who was something else happened ahead.
Right.
Maybe the person ahead of them stopped all of a sudden. So maybe
Yeah.
they were part of a scheme, they were part of a fraud scheme.
Right.
And so there are a lot of things that you can, once you bring in, and
Yeah.
then you start kind of integrating with third party sources to say, what was the road he was on, or she was on,
Sure.
and what was the speed limit on that
Uh-huh.
one? What was
Right.
the traffic like at that point? What does the
Sure.
police report say? So
Right.
now you're kind of, you first built your exposures from the story. Now
Mm-hmm.
you can add other pieces to it. So when we convert the unstructured to structured, you're taking that facts of loss, you're taking the actual exposure that
Mm-hmm.
caused the accident, or that was more prevalent in that accident,
Mm-hmm.
and you're converting that to something that I can now commonly measure in
Yeah.
every accident that is similar.
Sure. Sure. That's fascinating. And it almost feels like you are sort of creating a story out of this, or a
Yes.
narrative, a sequence of events which are contextual in a way.
Yes.
And they're important to someone, to the insurance processors and underwriters and people who are processing the claims, those folks, but also probably the drivers, all the involved parties. They have their
100%.
own, right? That is absolutely fascinating, and this data is already out there, I'm assuming. So it's you have your prongs into some sources of getting this data, or you
We
more.
It's not out there publicly.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's the big, I would say that's the big factor that you have to understand in how we built this over
Yeah.
millions of claims. Today, Charlie is being trained over 55 million claims, and
Wow.
we have more
Hmm.
than 50,000 such base insights
Yeah.
covering all property and casualty, like all commercial and personal
Sure.
lines. So
Sure.
it takes time to train.
Yeah. Hmm.
We took almost 3.5 years to just train this over these millions of claims. So
Wow.
it does take
Hmm.
time. And the reason is because it's not publicly available data. This
Yeah.
is data that belongs to the insurance company. It belongs
Uh-huh.
to the claims. So you have
Yeah.
to, there are a lot of security aspects that you have to keep in mind when
Sure.
you take their data and you're training it. And there are a
Yeah.
lot of legal and all those things that you also have to
Hmm.
keep in mind.
Sure.
So yeah,
Regulatory.
it's
Yeah.
not
Sure.
publicly available.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Going back to your company, Charlee AI. Normally, when I speak with entrepreneurs, they have two takes on this. I normally ask them what was the vision of the company, and they normally have one of the two answers, or somewhere there's a third option. But it's I never had a vision. I just started doing something, and I kind of backed into it. And the second group of people are those who say, well, I kind of wanted to build this kind of company, and then I just kind of backtrack from that, and I figure out how to build it. And the third option is kind of, you start doing something and you build something and you pivot, right? Which is a big term in the startup industry. So what was it like for you? Did you have a vision when you started Charlee AI? By the way, was it called Charlee AI when you started it? And then, it evolved into Charlee AI. So what's sort of like this origin story where, you start out with a vision, and did you have a vision? And if you did, what was that?
So going back to the company where I launched 2 solutions and I
Yeah.
was talking to a lot of claims managers, around that time, the company disinvested in all those products. So I had 2 options, whether
Yeah.
to become a full-time uh, consultant for them, which meant 100% travel,
Sure.
or leave the place. I mean, leave the
Yeah.
company. So I chose to leave the company because I had a three and a half year old that was not doing really great with my
Sure.
40% of travel. So
Uh-huh.
100% was completely out of the question. So
Mm-hmm.
I decided to leave, but I also kept, kept kind of thinking about the idea that I had about converting the unstructured data to structured data. Around
Mm-hmm.
the same time, what happened was my husband was at a parking lot at at Trader Joe's,
Uh-huh.
and a car, like when he was trying to back up his car, there was another car next to him that came and parked, and the person opened the door, and it just slightly scratched,
Mm-hmm.
our car,
Yeah.
and the person got out. My husband got out. They exchanged information. At that time, he was almost sounding like he wants to settle the claim right there,
Mm-hmm.
not go
Right.
through the insurance.
Yeah.
And my husband said, "No, we want to go through the insurance. Let's
Right.
at least inform them." And
Sure.
so they took each other's insurance details, went out. He calls up the insurance company, tells them what happened with the
Mm-hmm.
claim, and 1 month. I'll cut short the story. 1 month after that, the attorney gets involved, with
Mm-hmm.
the other person,
Wow.
and claims a lot of injuries
Oh.
and claims a lot of things. And,
Yeah.
you give your story. My husband gave, his story,
Right.
and there were no questions asked.
Right.
As soon as the attorney gets involved, after 2-3 months, once since the claim happened, the claim almost settled for like 80K, and
Wow.
our
Mm-hmm.
premiums were hiked up. And through this experience, what I learned was that the story, again, it went back to the claim story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the claim
Yeah.
story, which included, my husband's story of what really happened. What did he
Mm-hmm.
see at that time? There were no injuries. It was
Yeah.
nothing to his car. It
Right.
was more a scratch to our car.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. There were no injuries. It was a parking lot. You're not
Right.
even driving to have an impact.
Right.
So none of those things were actually considered.
Yeah.
And that's what triggered my this one, about vision of Charlee. Yes, it
Mm-hmm.
was not called Charlee back then. It was called
Uh-huh.
Infinite Analytics.
Uh-huh.
But the product was called Charlee
Right.
back then. So the whole vision for Charlee was to be able to convey that story of a policyholder,
Yeah.
and convey that story in that measurable attributes,
Mm-hmm.
so that the adjusters or the claims people can actually take into account that story while making a decision. So
Right.
it's that, again, it goes back to the end user, like you and I. We are policyholders, and when you sign up for insurance, you have this whole consoling that you have somebody to take care of you when
Yeah.
there is a loss. And
Yep.
I felt like the important part of the story was missed, and
Mm-hmm.
the vision is going back to policyholders like me. And how do you service your
Sure.
claims for such policyholders who are honest, who you
Right.
can continue to kind of keep them for lifelong?
Yeah.
And you serve them better, and
Right.
you get the claims resolved in a more efficient and effective manner, so it
Yeah.
doesn't come back to the premiums.
Sure.
Because today the costs that you see, the litigation costs, the attorney getting involved costs,
Right.
and all the fraud costs, all these
Yeah.
costs are coming back to us, in our premiums.
Ultimately. Yeah.
So it's my goal is to improve the end users experience by
Sure.
helping the carriers.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And at the same time, you're helping the carriers as well
Yeah.
do their
I
jobs
mean,
better.
that's my
Right.
way of
And
getting them to help the end users. They're
exactly.
not my end users, but my end users are the carriers. That's who we are
Yeah.
targeting. But my goal is if I can help them become more efficient, hopefully they will become more efficient and more efficient and more, I would say more than efficiency. I want to see insurance companies talk about the good that they do
Sure.
for the
Sure.
policyholders.
Yeah.
So just getting that positive stories and better service.
100%. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And on that point, so one of the beneficiaries of what you offer to the marketplace is the folks who are getting insured, like you and me, right? People, driving a car on the road and holding houses and properties. And obviously, there is sort of like a triangle here where the insurance company also benefits from it. So I'm assuming that your quote unquote customer is the insurance company,
Yes.
or underwriters or carriers, right? So, do you have one of the things that I would like to get into a little bit here is that is the avatar or the profile of a customer that who is an ideal customer for us. So, do you have some idea, or I'm sure you do have an idea, but if you can share who is the ideal prospect for you? So, if you had you do have a sales team, I'm sure. If I can work for you as a salesperson, who am I targeting in terms of, I have a pitch, here's my technology and our platform, and we can bring value to you so that you can serve your customers better. Well, who am I pitching within these organizations?
Charlie is mainly targeting the claims operations.
Okay.
So anybody in the claims, starting with claims executives to the
Sure.
claims adjusters, all the way to the frontline staff.
Got it.
That's who our ideal target market is. So
Sure.
we are pretty much going after claims executives and
Sure.
claims VPs who are making the decision for the software. But the
Sure.
users of the software go all the way down to the adjusters. Everybody
Yeah.
and everybody who's dealing with some part or aspect of the claim, which is litigation, risk management. So
Right.
everybody in that area. We're also now getting interest from actuaries and also from underwriting team that wants to understand and learn about these exposures because their
Sure.
renewals and their rating is based on that. So
Yeah.
we're getting interest from that. But our target is the claims.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So here you are, Charlie. By the way, Charlie, what's the genesis of the name Charlie? I love that name. It's different, and it feels like it's a person. Like I don't know if Progressive, for example, has flow, right? So you have it's a friendly name, and I love that. Any stories about how you came up with the name Charlie?
Literally, that's the idea. We wanted
Really?
a name for the product
Yeah.
that is very friendly.
Right.
And
Right.
so one of my advisors suggested Charlie as in with an IE.
Uh-huh.
And because at that time we had a plan to launch because of our NLP and because of our exposure
Right.
intelligence database, some of the advisors felt like we should launch a chatbot.
Yeah.
And they named the chatbot Charlie because they
Uh-huh.
wanted a very friendly name. So we
Right.
said, we're not going to do a chatbot because we are all about, exposures and taking down to the predictions and,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of extending it to the predictive analytics and
Yeah.
other solutions. So we
Sure.
said, we're not going to do that. But, I like the name. So, we kept the name
Mm-hmm.
and we named the product Charlie. And I said, well, it has to have a difference. We can't
Mm-hmm.
just call it Charlie. So we
Yeah.
just added two E's at the end, and we
Yeah.
said it's going to be Charlie with a double E. and it's going to have a character. Like if you look at the robot, it actually has a character to it, because we wanted it to be friendly. We wanted it to also signify AI. And the robot came much later, but the Charlee as a product name was already existing. So at some point, it just made sense for us to rebrand our company
around
to the product name, because the product name, Charlee, had caught this one that even with a very cold lead would remember Charlee, and they would not remember the company name. So when that happened, everybody advised that we should rebrand to Charlee. So, we just rebranded to Charlee. And Charlee is just, it's
That's
a
a great
very
story.
friendly name, as you very rightly said.
Yeah, I love it. So here you are. You built a platform, and you had a pretty awesome level of success. You rebranded the company, and you're sitting here in a pretty good place, where you had clients, and then you had the platform, and you have the technology, and you have the branding, and all of these things are working out for you. What do you think you would like to see yourself or see Charlee in the future, let's say, and however far you can see the future, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years down the road? What's your vision today of Charlee going forward?
I definitely want to see the insurance industry focus more on exposures, in
Sure.
being able to do any decision that you take or make is going back to that exposures, because that's really what you're insuring.
Sure.
And so you must know your exposures. That's what we
Sure.
call it at Charlee. Know
Yeah.
your exposures.
Yeah.
And that's really what Charlee is driving. So all of the solutions that we are building, like today we have 4 solutions on top of our platform: predictive analytics, fraud detection, and the document intelligence, and the query intelligence. All of these solutions are, again, driving towards getting that exposure intelligence to you much faster. So down the road, we want to be a company that owns like complete exposure intelligence database that people can tap into, whether it's your marketing, whether it's your product, whether it's your underwriting, your actuary, your claims, all everything, every department within insurance should be thinking exposures, should be thinking about, the marketing should be thinking about taking those exposures and marketing that to your end users. There is nothing to shy away. You are ensuring that, you need to pass on that knowledge to your end user. And the end user will learn more about, not from your policies, but more from what happened with others that I can learn from. How did you have your car accident? How was your home, uninhabitable, or something happened, in your company or with your liability or something, right? I want to know what happened to the others, so I can learn better, and I can be covered completely. At least I have full knowledge of what coverages I should get. So
Sure.
all of them, if you go back to it, everything starts from that exposure. So we
Sure.
want to
Sure.
be the company for exposures, that people come to us for everything, and we want to have a much larger market share, and we want to drive the vision that it's all about knowing your exposures.
Exposure, right? And once again, exposure. The definition of exposure is basically your risk factors. What
Pretty
are the
much.
risks basically that of existing?
Yep.
Right. So I love it. That's a pretty bold vision, and I love it because it gets the juices going.
Yes. And if you think about it, they don't remain the same, right?
Right.
Your pre-COVID risks are slightly different from your post-COVID risks now.
Sure.
A lot more companies are giving work from home. So now the risk factors on some of those things change. So they are a very evolving, platform. That's the reason why you need AI to be able to be in the center of that exposure, aggregation, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we have, we have vision, right? As entrepreneurs, you have a vision. And when you started the company, you had a vision, and there is a reality of where we are. So we are in one place, and then we say, "Here's where I'm going to be." And between the reality and that vision is a path or a journey, right? So we're all on a journey, and then there is the entrepreneurial journey. So Sri has taken an entrepreneurial journey. So you started this business, and here you are. On that journey, what are some of the things that you think that you did with Charlee AI? What are some of the things that you did that you're so proud of, or the most proud of? Or maybe one or two things, if you can give us some examples.
We have been very... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Now, I was just kind of elaborating the question a little bit. Some systems you put in place, some steps that you took, some strategies, some innovations, some things that you invented that you didn't have before, just to kind of go from the point A to point B.
So I would have to start with people first. I think the most important thing, for a startup like at least mine, because a lot of people did not believe me when I said that you can actually do this. You can actually create a language model that can interpret unstructured data into structured attributes. And you can actually do that. I did that much before, Sam Altman did at OpenAI with his GTM. GPT. Sorry.
GPT,
and so it's something that we developed in house. The claims language model, and we're very, very proud of it. But it all goes back to the team. When, like I said to you, when I was offered the choice between, becoming a consultant or leaving the company, I thought to myself, maybe this is a good stand that I'm in. Although, a lot of them don't like to be laid off, I was essentially, that's the choice I had, right? So instead of taking it negatively, I thought about it on what do I want to do now? And then I came to the conclusion that if I want to work for somebody and change their principles and change their business models, it's not practical. So I want to start a company where I implement some of these things that I want for myself. And that's how I started it. And it literally started with training mothers and training people, not just mothers, but also, others who wanted to get into the AI and NLP space. So we trained them literally from scratch. And also, that's one thing. And the second thing is how to work in a coordinated manner, although you're remote. We were almost 80% remote even before COVID. So we had absolutely no problems in adapting to the work from home, because my theory is I'm hiring adults, and they need to know how to do their own project plan, which includes their personal and professional lives. Sometimes professional life calls you, sometimes personal life calls you. So you need to be able to balance that, and you're an adult, and I want to give you that independence and freedom to perform at your best with your project plan. So that's something, we have been very, very, very strict about, as the culture of Charlee is to be able to give you that independence, freedom, and respect. And in turn, we ask you that you will give us the complete dedication needed when there is a deadline. So it works both ways. It's like, if I'm giving you all these things, you need to give me back dedication. You need to give me back an honest this one. Yes, is this going to happen within this deadline or no? So just the clarity, the communication, and the respect and freedom and the teamwork. It was a very collaborative, very, I would say, very, very desperate team. Like, in the sense, like, we were all bringing skills from different perspectives. So I'm not getting the word right now, but very differentiated team that came together, collaborated together. Diverse. Thank you. So very diverse team that brought, their skills, their strengths, and their respect. And we are so proud that the culture is still maintained today, where we still treat every person as, every person. When I say every person, not just employees, but employees, partners, customers, and investors. Everybody, with the same respect.
Absolutely. Now, what I find fascinating about that, Shri, is that here you are an AI company, quote unquote, right? And and what you are passionate about, and the passion comes through the camera. What you're really passionate about, the people, and the humanness of the people, and the diversity, and what you've done with with building the culture of your company. And that's where the passion is, right? I mean, you're passionate about the data and all the rest of it too, but this is where it feels to me like that's where your heart is. This is where your passion is, right? And so people say that, okay, AI is going to take away my job. So it's one of the things that that's out there. And some people have gotten on the wagon, and some people are kind of saying no. What's your take on that? Is AI going to displace people? And if it is, it's that a good thing or a bad thing? Or is there a silver lining to that cloud? A silver lining to that cloud?
I've always believed that change is the only constant.
Yeah.
And, as they say, that's the saying too.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in that very much, 100%. And you cannot stop change.
Yeah.
And we've never been able to stop change. With
Sure.
every invention that human race has had, if you go
Sure.
back, it's always displaced some kind of jobs, but it's
Mm-hmm.
created other kinds of jobs.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
true.
the process of evolution. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's the
Yeah.
way it has to happen. If
Yeah.
you look at animals, if you look at the universe around you, if you look at plants around you, they all
Right.
evolve. They all
Yeah.
evolve. If you put a plant in a certain condition,
Yeah.
the chances are in the next few generations, the plant adapts to
Sure.
that. So
Absolutely.
that is the key. Is
Yeah.
change is always going to be there, whether we like it or not.
Right.
How do you adapt to that change? That's in our hands. And that's the key. I've seen my father, when I was growing up, I seen my father.
Yeah.
He's an excellent automobile engineer.
Yeah.
But he was only a diploma holder. By the time he
Right.
came to his 40s, he lost his job to the young engineers.
Yeah.
And, the whole fact that, he was excellent in cars. He
Yeah.
designed some of his designs were actually adopted by some famous companies out there.
Wow.
But the problem is that he didn't upgrade his skills, and he
Yeah.
almost thought that the automation would not catch him. But it did happen. The
That's true.
automation in the auto industry came about, around that time, and he
Yeah.
lost his job.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult for him to find another job. And I
Sure.
had seen the struggles. I
Right.
had seen through those struggles of what
Sure.
it did when people don't expect and you fear.
Right.
Yes, you need to have some amount of fear because it kind of motivates you, but you use it to motivate you, not to kind of demotivate you,
That's
because
true.
it is coming whether we like it or not. So that kind of stuck in my head so much that
Mm-hmm.
I feel that everything that we do, in whether it's AI today or
Mm-hmm.
it was the .com, back in the 2000s,
That's right.
where now it's like, now if you think about it, can you imagine a business not having a website?
That's
I
true.
mean,
That's true.
even a
It's
consulting
it's like
company.
having a business card, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you look back, you start thinking about why was I so, why was I so against this change?
Yeah.
And so the change is going to happen. I say, as humans, we need to capitalize
Right.
and we need to adapt, and we just need to move forward, taking
Yeah.
the positives of the change and
Sure.
fighting the negatives, because every
Yeah.
change is going to have something that it's going to advance, and some things that will advance in a way that is not um that is not very nice, or I don't know
Yeah.
the right word, but it's
Yeah.
not a very acceptable one for you.
Sure.
But you
Sure.
just have to adapt and move on. That's the best way. AI is going to take your job. Unfortunately, I believe that it is going to displace a
Yeah.
lot of jobs. It is going to
Right.
change the job descriptions for many, and we
That's
need
true.
to be ready for that. We need to use AI as a tool to move
It's true.
forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And beautifully said. I think on that note, if I can piggyback on that a little bit, there is a saying that if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem that you have is going to look like a nail, right? So as we evolve and as our problems become more complex, our tool sets evolve as well because then
Yes.
if I have more tools in my toolbox, then I can look at my problems in a little bit more thoughtful way, and then I can fix them and solve them more competently, right, and more effectively.
100%.
And that's what's happening with the evolution of technology. And I think that part of it is that we need to evolve with it. As in, there's I was reading about Finland. They have an educational system for their elementary school children. And they don't teach them, in India, I went to school in India. I don't know about you, but we used to memorize multiplication tables. I think you were in US.
I
in
remember
US
that.
system. In Finland, they don't force you to memorize the multiplication tables. So and that may be right or wrong or whatever, but the philosophy behind that is that we already have calculators, and why waste time and energy doing something that there is already tools for doing that, right? So then we are free to think bigger problems, or think about solving bigger problems, or think at a higher level, or operate or function at a higher level in terms of our rational thought and problem solving and things like that. So, AI, I think it's compelling. I don't know if it's forcing us, but it's going to compel us to kind of evolve and look at it from a different perspective, from bigger perspective, so that we can solve even more problems and solve them more effectively. So, sorry, I got on.
Completely agree. I think,
Yeah.
it's a tool, and that's, AI is a tool like any other thing, like your .com
Yeah.
times. It's very similar to the database revolution we had,
Right.
where we first time we saw the relational databases, and that gave rise to a lot of applications
Right.
in the enterprise world.
That's true.
So if you look at the evolution of technology itself, you are 100% right. It's a tool, and we have to add more tool sets. I love that phrase. You have to
Right.
add more tool sets to
Yeah.
your toolbox, and
Sure.
we cannot get paranoid or afraid, or
Right.
fear
Right.
the toolbox, but use it
Yeah.
effectively to move forward.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And on your journey as an entrepreneur, Shri, I speak with a lot of business builders, entrepreneurs, and organizational leaders and folks like that, and there are some patterns. So one thing I hear is that entrepreneurial journey, a business building journey, is not always moonlight and roses. It looks that way from the people who are looking from the outside in, but for the people who are living it and looking from the inside out, it's not all. It sometimes is. There are some good things about it, being an entrepreneur, and obviously there are many things that we are proud of, and we accomplish things, and those things feel good. But it's not always a happy journey. There are some times when we think that, how did I do this? Why did I do this? Right? Sometimes people call it the dark night of the soul type of moment. It could be one big moment when you think, my God, I shouldn't have done this. What did I get myself into? What was I thinking? Have you ever had a moment like that, or multiple moments some people talk about, where you thought that I shouldn't have done this. This was a wrong idea. I should, let me back away from this.
I haven't thought about it in that way,
Mhm.
but I did think about it when it came to certain things, like certain strategies,
Sure.
when it came to fundraising, when it came
Yeah.
to the vertical that I chose
Sure.
with this. Yes, at those times, I thought to myself, did I pick the wrong, did I pick the wrong vertical? Because it's a
Yeah.
very slow moving vertical,
Uh-huh.
as we all know.
Sure.
InsurTech
Right.
is very, very slow.
Sure.
And when it comes to technology, we are a technology company at the end of it.
Right.
We
Yeah.
are a technology company for the insurance,
Sure.
but at the core, we are a technology company.
Right.
So the technology companies go at a different pace.
Yeah.
And here we are in the insurtech. Insurance goes in a very different place, very different pace. So sometimes it's like, you see a lot of people that advance with with a tech company. They've already advanced, and here you are, you're kind of like slow moving.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that time it does bring to your attention at that time, have you picked the right vertical? at the right time, or is it
Yeah.
too early for this? When I started, Bhavesh, I want to tell you this, that we didn't call ourselves AI company.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
although we were doing cutting edge stuff back then, we didn't call ourselves AI company simply because we were afraid that people would not understand that and
Yeah.
dismiss us and not take us
Right.
seriously. So
Yeah.
we called ourselves analytics company, not
Uh-huh.
even predictive analytics. We just
Yeah.
called ourselves analytics company.
Yeah.
So, I mean, coming from the industry, there's certain things I knew,
Sure.
certain things, when it goes to selling
Yeah.
products to the insurance companies,
Right.
it's a different ball game. But then
Oh, yeah. I
what
can
I
imagine.
also
Yeah.
did was to try and understand from their perspective why.
Sure. Right.
And
Right.
once I understood that, then, I came back and made some changes
Mm-hmm.
to the product, to the strategy.
Yeah.
That's the key. It's like, yes, you're going to have moments, like any other entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you look at your bank account, sometimes when you look at your
Yeah.
your personal life, sometimes you look at your relationships, your
Yeah.
times that you can devote and you cannot devote.
Sure.
I've not had a holiday. I've not had a holiday since last 12 years.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's I've not taken a break.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't complain
Mm-hmm.
because I love it. I love
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
that I do at
Yeah.
this. But yes, that means that you're compromising on family events, you're compromising on a
Sure.
lot of,
Sure.
fun things and
Yeah.
things like that. So there are compromises, but when you look at what goal you set out to be
Uh-huh.
and you stick to that, today, the kind of things today, just this morning, we got one of our customers called out our name in their earnings report. The
Oh, wow.
CEO very proudly said, along
Yeah.
with the rate changes, we adopted Charlee for improving our efficiencies.
Sure. Yeah.
And we were so proud and thrilled. So it's almost like you ask any mom,
Mm-hmm.
do they remember the pain of delivery?
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah.
they don't remember the labor pains when they look at their
True.
child. So
Mm-hmm.
I can only tell you that it's very similar to that.
Yeah. I
It's
love that
it's
metaphor. Yeah.
it's just pretty much
Just love it.
that
Yeah.
analogy is that after you've delivered the baby and you're looking at your baby every day grow, watch them grow, watch them do well,
Yeah.
you don't remember the labor pains at all,
That's
and
true.
you probably want to do it again and again, but
Yeah.
it's just that because you've seen that the
Yeah.
value in that baby, how
Yeah.
they've grown and what they've
Sure.
grown out to be.
Yeah.
So I equate it to the same thing. It's like Charlie is my baby, and every
Yeah.
time Charlie does well, I don't remember any of those days.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The only thing you remember is the love, and as you look at the
Yes,
baby, and how you feel
it's the value
as
that Charlie
you.
is
Yeah.
providing to the end, to our customers.
Yes.
That's more important. And when they recognize and realize and, they admire us for that, you just feel like nothing else matters.
Ah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautifully said. Entrepreneurial journey, sometimes they say, as I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and business builders, they say that it changes you. And for the most part, it's a good thing. It's a good change. Has there been a change in how, sometimes we look inward and say, Shri before and Shri after this journey. Are those two versions the same person, or it's a different version that we have today?
It's a totally different person.
Really?
It's completely changed the outlook of many things that I held very close
Yeah.
to this, and that's why I was telling you about change. Change is hard. As
Yeah.
much as it is a constant, it
Sure.
is very, very hard. And
Yeah.
as you're growing older, it gets even more harder because you tend to become risk averse. As you
Sure.
grow older, you tend to
Nature of
hold
things.
on to things
Yeah.
that are more routine, that are more
Right.
comfortable for you. So you
Sure.
don't want to place yourself in that uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
Now, as a teenager, I've always taken a lot of risks, and maybe that factor of being comfortable
Yeah.
it was not consistent in my life.
Yeah.
But becoming an entrepreneur and taking these kind of risks and being uncomfortable
Yeah.
in those situations is scary. It's scary. It
Yes.
just requires a very tough person, and it
Yeah.
also requires somebody who's consistent, who shows
Yes.
up.
Yes.
And that consistency is what I have developed,
Yeah.
and that patience, the consistency, the the ability to look at everybody's viewpoint,
Yeah.
and not just, sometimes it is much easier if you just have to listen to your own instructions,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of giving more mics on the table for everybody to talk, and
Yeah.
that's key. Otherwise, I'm very, very talkative. I
Yeah.
talk a lot. So just in terms of um, respect for everybody, in terms of accommodating
Mm-hmm.
this discomfort. Like
Yeah.
every day is different. One day is like
Yes.
too happy, the next day can be like devastating to you, and you could
Yes.
even come down to the place where I don't know if the company is going to exist or not, if I
Mm-hmm.
want to do this, like you said, if I want to
Mm-hmm.
do this. So how do you navigate through all these ups and downs? And
Yeah.
that's really where yoga helped me a lot.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
just being in nature sometimes, just taking even that 1-2 hours and spending in nature, and just starting your day with yoga, and
Mm-hmm.
just feeling that calmness.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
my one of my colleagues keeps saying you have to be like the duck in the water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All the pedaling happens under the water, so people don't
Mm-hmm.
see it. So you
Right. Love that.
so
Yeah.
it's like that. You have to do the work, but you
Sure.
have to do it with the calmness.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
And
And the
that's a big
calmness.
change for me.
Uh-huh. Is it? Yeah. So managing the exposure, right?
Yes,
Right.
very much.
So, so and in this case, instead of AI, that you're going to yoga and to yourself and to your center. So what is it that you think that hasn't changed as you do yoga and probably have an idea of this present moment and all of that? There is something here. Even as we age, as we change, everything changes around us. There is something that doesn't. Can you talk about that a little bit, or have you been in touch with that? Something like that, or if you can kind of verbalize that. Sometimes it's hard to even talk about it.
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell you what is that quality,
Yeah, yeah,
what is that characteristic of
yeah,
mine. I
yeah.
kind of say that it's the risk taking.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
the ability to take risks and
Yes,
be
yeah,
comfortable with it. I think I was
yeah,
always like I think I told you, like
yeah,
even as a teenager, not that
yeah,
people want to hear those stories, but
yeah.
um, it's that ability to and also a lot goes back to my upbringing. My
Sure.
grandpa was a major influence in my life,
Right,
and he was a cop, and then he turned into, I mean, he became a criminal attorney, and he
right,
trained me for a lot of things. So
right.
I think those core values of,
Mm-hmm.
stand up for what you believe, and
Yeah,
work hard for what you believe. That
sure, sure.
quality and that strength, I think
Yeah,
that strength is what keeps me going. That hasn't
yes,
changed. If I believe in
yeah,
something, I just go for it. And
yeah,
at that time, it's like you made a decision, I stick to
yeah.
it.
Sure,
So
sure.
those are some qualities that have definitely, I would say, become my
Yeah,
strength along the way. And
yeah,
they've only strengthened further
yeah.
with yoga, because now you find what are those core values, what's your core
That's right.
strength, as they
Right.
say,
Yes,
in
yes, yeah,
it's not in your abs.
yeah.
The core strength is really not in your abs. The core strength
Exactly. It's
is in
yes,
that
yeah,
mind and the physical body coming together, and that's
yes,
really what kind of takes you through rough waters,
yeah.
and you
Absolutely,
don't even think
absolutely.
about it.
Yeah. You said something fascinating. You said strength, right? You said like the strength and values, and the strength, the values. So the values that your grandfather taught, and then there's strength, and also you talked about. I think you said something like being okay with risk, or just risk, as
Yes.
in that risk is there is 100% exposure. Talking about exposure, right? It's you're just exposed, or we all are, right? There is a Helen Keller quote, I think, that she said something like, "Security is a superstition. It does not exist in nature," right? And as long as we hold on to the security and all of these things, it's we're gonna fail. But as soon as we accept that there is no security, then we come into this place where that we can't even explain, right? Then that becomes a strength. Is that, am I on the right track with that a little bit?
You are absolutely 100% right. And I think you said it beautifully than what I would have put in. The only thing I want to add there is, people, when people, fail, there are two ways you can go. Either you can just say, I'm never going to do this again. Or you can just say, okay, now that I know that this is what it means, I'm going to do it differently and succeed, right? So there are two types of attitudes that you can develop when you're constantly in situations. Like when you're growing up, a lot of those things play into who you become. That's why your childhood is so important, because the strengths, the weaknesses, everything comes from that, from the observations of your adults. So it's more a mindset change when you think about what is at risk. Why does it bother you so much? It's because we're all used to security in life. We all feel, okay, once you get a job, you get a house, you get a car, you have a family, the kids go to school, it's like they go to college, and then their life continues. But when something disrupts that, you just don't know what to do, because you've never expected that. But my theory in life is nothing is permanent. Nothing, neither are we. It's like, if you think about the short life that you came up with, that you're here with, there is nothing that is immortal. We starting with ourselves, like, we don't even know for a fact whether I'm going to be alive tomorrow or in the next few hours. When you don't have a clear idea of your life and death, why fear anything else? So that's where I come from. And I feel like, because maybe the situations in my past have evolved me to the next step and the next stage, and so I don't have any fear. Every time I think about a risk, I think about the opportunities that come with it. Now, some risks are expensive than the others, so you just have to be okay with that.
That's true.
And if you have a family, then you have to communicate with them. If you are in a team, then definitely talk to your team about those risks, because like Charlee does, it provides those risks and the exposures to your knowledge so you can make better decisions. So I think it's all about awareness of those risks and those exposures in your life, that you can make better decisions once you know about them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wisely said. This has been a fascinating conversation. We talked about risks and exposure to risk, but at the same time, when we bring it to our personal lives, it takes on this different philosophical aspect, philosophical form. So, and you said those things beautifully. So I'm honored to have you on this podcast and talk about these things. So if you were advising me, I know you are a mentor in the insurtech world. If you had a mentor, which I'm sure you already have this kind of conversation, when they come to you and say, what's one thing that I should be mindful of, Sri, when I start a business and grow a business? If there was one thing that you could tell a new entrepreneur that you used to be 20 years ago, 15 years ago, what would that be?
Be okay with the no.
Oh, okay. That was surprising.
You're going to hear a lot of it. And you're going to hear it from many directions. You're going to hear it almost every day. Sometimes it just completely can demotivate you. But if you give into it, you have to listen to that, but you cannot live by it.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, okay, I gotta
Yeah.
know, move on.
Right. Right.
So just being okay with no,
Okay.
because it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts at every point.
Mhm.
And it hurts even more when you're an entrepreneur, because you feel like you have created something so
Yes. It's
beautiful.
personal. Right.
It is
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you cannot. I tell people, this is from my mom. When she was
Mhm.
raising me, and I was a difficult teenager, by the way.
Mhm.
And I asked her, "How did you manage me? How did you not take things personally?" And she said, "Because my focus was you.
Oh.
My focus was not what you were saying.
Mm. That's
My focus
beautiful.
was to create those ground root values for you.
Yeah.
So at some point, I know you will see them."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So you have to, come back to your roots, make sure your values are strong, make sure
Mhm.
your root is stronger, and
Yeah.
you're not really paying attention to people's no, because there's what I believe, come to believe, in the entrepreneurship world, is it's not a no, it's a not now.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But I love the wisdom of those words. My focus is you. I love that. So we're we can go on for another 2 hours, Shri, and it's a fascinating conversation. I would love to have you back on this podcast, maybe 6 months, 1 year, a year down the road, something like that. And for now, what is it that you're looking for right now? What's your next goal? And if someone wants to reach out to you and have a conversation about something, what would that topic be? And how do they reach out to you? What are the best ways for them to get hold of you?
I am 24/7 on LinkedIn. That's the best way to catch me.
Okay, sure.
And I pay attention to every single personal message that comes to me. And
Uh-huh.
people might think, oh, this is a good time to kind of send spam. No, I
Yeah.
do kind of filter out those. But definitely, I am paying attention to everybody sending me messages, because I learn. And
Yes.
LinkedIn is a place that I just live there 24/7. Best place
Okay.
to reach me. Or you can reach me at Sri.Ramaswamy at Charlee.ai.
Okay, perfect. Yes, and mention the Business Philosopher Within You podcast when you reach out to She, so that she'll accept your connection request immediately.
There you
It's
go.
it's a little plug for the podcast. So thank you very much, Shri. I enjoyed this conversation immensely, and some of the areas that we went into that were very fascinating, bringing together the world of data analytics and exposure, and then also talking about our personal values and how we deal with our own the unpredictability of life and who we are, and how that plays into all of this. That was a beautiful conversation, and I thank you for having that conversation with me.
Thank you, Bhavesh, for letting me letting me open up myself and talking with my
It's
heart.
my
So
pleasure.
thank you.
You were probably tired. A lot of folks feel a bit, I asked one of the guests, and they were like, what was it like? And they were like, it was cathartic. So,
No, I
and
loved it. I can keep
good,
going. I
awesome.
told you I'm very talkative.
Okay.
I
and
loved it.
that's make it fun and easy to interview you.
I
And
just
I've been on,
love when you were like just flowing with the thing, and you were picking
yeah,
questions, and um, I think it was like somewhere challenging.
yeah,
Especially is it's like you asked about entrepreneurship. Are there days when you get up and you want to you just don't want to do this anymore?
yeah,
My God, yeah. I mean,
yes.
like any entrepreneur
Speak
that
from
says
experience.
no is,
Yeah,
is
they're
lying to
lying.
you.
Yeah, yeah. No,
It's
yeah,
lying.
yeah,
There's no, there are many
yeah.
days, that you
Right.
just
Absolutely.
feel
Yeah,
lonely. You just feel like, why did you do this?
yeah.
And
That's true.
especially it takes a lot of sacrifices personally
Yes.
from you. And,
Yeah,
it's hard. It's a
yeah,
very hard journey. So,
yeah.
I mean, the questions were awesome.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So, yeah, I wanted to ask about that. So it was okay. I always like to kind of try to gauge what it's like to be on the other side, because that's by design. The idea here is that we get beyond the intellectual. So we
Hmm.
start with the intellectual, and then we get to the gut. And because I want to kind of present to the audience who Shri really is. And so that's the reasoning behind some of the questions I ask, and that makes for a fascinating conversation. You come through as who you are, and that makes us authentic, and people love it. So even for business perspective, looking at Sri like this is actually more human, right? And people can
exactly.
So
I mean, you're scared to kind of put this side of yourself.
It's true.
A lot of times, it's scary because you're showing your vulnerable side. You're showing
Absolutely.
some. I mean, you could be interpreted in any way, right? So it's like you're taking the risk.
That's true. It's the risk management. Exposure. It's the exposure, right?
There you go. But unless and until if you don't have the exposure, you're not going to grow.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So in order to grow, you need that exposure.
Yeah.
But how do you manage that exposure is the key.
Sure. Now, you said it was difficult at times to it's like talking to a psychiatrist sometimes, we don't want to talk about it, but then we do talk about it and then we realize that it was a good thing. Was it okay in the end? As in, did that feel okay? Was it an okay experience, a more inspiring experience being on that other side of those questions?
Towards the end, it was a little overwhelming. Like you really you really touched the deep side, and it was almost like teary. And I had to like stop myself, and it was very emotional. Yeah. But it was good. I think it was good to just there's some things that your experiences limit you, and you don't talk about it. You kind of touched that side of it. So
thank you for the feedback.
It wasn't easy.
It was But
because I'm like, okay, what is Bhavesh going to ask me next if I say this?
Oh my God, what's he going to ask me?
No, but I like it that way. Okay. I don't like rehearsed podcasts. Sure. I think this, like you said, very rightly said, brings the authentic side of people, the human side of entrepreneurs. And you want to hear that.
Exactly. Right. That right there. So thank you for that feedback.